Yo, what is up? All right, here's the thing. I'm gonna skip this whole little intro thing. I'm really hoping this is working. That's my main thing right now, because I don't know, for some reason this took me a long time to start up. I went live and it wasn't really showing up. If you're out there and you're seeing this, let me know, because there is a, let's see, 40% chance that this is not working at all, and I'm just talking to myself, which I feel like I'm getting used to doing by now, sitting in a room and seeing people in chat, but kind of just talking for an hour and a half for these videos. But what is up? Appreciate you stopping in. Steve, you're there. If you see me, let me know. Tonight, as you probably know at this point, I'm doing an AFC North preview, and I may or may not be doing some live draft consultation, best ball style, with Big Steve. So we'll try to do both of those things. I am now, this is my 6th of 8 division preview shows. If you haven't been to one of these yet, they're more big picture views. I don't really look too much at my rankings for the positions. Once I'm done all 8 division previews, that's when I'm really going to be digging into the rankings, draft strategy, all that kind of stuff. What you'll see on the screen now basically is you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about here tonight. I'm talking what has changed with these teams, and I'm also going into projections of each of the teams. So I will go through all of these. Hopefully you can see these decently well on your screen, but I'm going to go through all 4 teams in the AFC North. And I've also got some film queued up and ready to go. As it worked out with this division, there are some fun second-year players that I've mentioned before with the game film. I don't want to show you Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. Like, I'm not going to show you guys like that. You don't need me to show you that they're good. Who I want to show you are the guys that are pretty interesting in terms of Saquon, Aaron Jones, Mahomes so far. I'm guessing that's what you've drafted, because that seems like that would be an interesting first 3 picks. So, yeah, that's awesome. Saquon and Aaron Jones, I think. Aaron Jones is going to slip, I think, a little bit right now because of the whole Aaron Rodgers situation. But, yes, depending on where you're picking, I'm guessing Aaron Jones fell more than he should have. If Aaron Rodgers is back, I talked about this last week, actually. He's a borderline top 5 running back for me, and if he's not, he's probably outside my top 10, but you probably got him outside the top 10 running backs anyway, so it seems about right. So I got some game film again, so I try to look at some of the players that maybe you haven't seen a lot of, and usually that is the previous year's rookies. So who I'm talking about today, and I'm going to show you some plays from JK Dobbins, from Higgins, from Chase Claypool. So we got 3 of last year's rookies. I'm going to show you some film, why I might like or not like those players. So we'll dig in deeper on those players, but I will talk about basically everyone that's relevant for fantasy football in these divisions. If you got any questions, AFC North or otherwise, like I said, Steve, if you got any questions, I could try to maybe this or that guy. I haven't built my rankings out yet. I figured I would do that in the next couple of weeks. I actually am going to finish my division previews, then I'm going on vacation, and then when I come back, that's when I'm really going to dive deep into a lot of that stuff. So these are more big picture views to kind of set the scene for the season. So without further ado, I'm going to get into that stuff right now, and we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, the changes for them that are really going to be the big stuff that you need to know for fantasy. So 2 new pass catchers. You got Sammy Watkins, comes over as a free agent. I think I was free agent, not a trade, but Sammy Watkins, and then they draft Rashad Bateman. So to me, what you're going to see from my projections is, what I think this actually does is maybe not make Sammy Watkins super relevant, maybe not hurt Marquise Brown too much. Maybe, I think Rashad Bateman becomes interesting for fantasy, but what I think this is going to do ultimately, more than anything, is help Lamar Jackson as a thrower, give him more options as a passer. Doesn't have to rely just on Mark Andrews short and Hollywood Brown deep. So that's what I think are the biggest takeaways there. You also see a lot of changes from that offensive line, and now Mark Ingram is gone as well. So you're left with what I guess we can only hope is a two-headed backfield, which by the end of the season, even with Mark Ingram on the team, he had some inactives towards the end of the season. It was essentially a two-man backfield by the end of the season already. So that sets me up for, and I should probably show you more of this, so you could see the edge of that. There we go. So this sets me up for my projections for the Baltimore Ravens. And I mentioned Lamar Jackson. I've talked about 6 of these divisions so far. I think my number 2 quarterback is going to be Josh Allen. I am struggling based on projections and what I think their upside is and how safe each guy is. I think Josh Allen is maybe a tiny bit safer, but just because of the rushing that Lamar can give you, and you can see in a 17-game projection, I have Lamar Jackson, too, for the 3rd time in a row, I believe, top 1,000 yards rushing. Lamar Jackson is also super safe, even if from the eye test as a passer, maybe you haven't seen him quite at his best. But if I look at what I'm projecting for these two players, I have them in terms of total points for the season, neck and neck. And I think at this point, because of what it's tough, right? Really, Josh Allen last year, that was the only time he's ever done it. But Lamar Jackson, really 2 years ago was the only time he's really ever done it. So both of these guys, giving them so I as you can see at the end of there, I put an upside and a safety score on each of these guys. To me, it's a scale of 1 to 10, and it dictates a lot about where I'm going to end up ranking guys. Higher up the draft, I want safety. I want guys that are a little more safe. If there's two players that are close in projections, and maybe I score one, and I think they have a similar upside, but I think one guy is a little bit safer, I'm probably going to go with that player because I don't want to lose my draft towards the top. After that, after, say, those first 4 or 5 rounds, that's when I'm really looking at upside. And you don't want guys with just like 9 upside and a 4 safety. You still want some floor to some of these players, but you definitely want some upside. You want guys that are going to help you win your league. You don't, if you ain't first, you're last, like Ricky Bobby always says. So for me, I think Lamar and Josh Allen both have the same upside and both have the same amount of safety, both in different ways. Lamar does it mainly with his legs. Josh Allen does it mainly, not mainly with his arm. I guess a combination of both. You're going to get a good amount of rushing touchdowns with Josh Allen. You're going to get a good amount of rushing yards with Josh Allen. But also, really, if I can kind of just pull up the Buffalo projections I have really quick. So I have about 3,500 yards, 32-9 in terms of passing. Almost went over a different page. Whereas for Josh Allen, I have 4,600 yards passing and about 35 passing touchdowns and 12 interceptions. He's going to give you obviously a lot less in terms of rushing yards is what you're going to get from Josh Allen. So, but Lamar Jackson, again, with these additions of these pass catchers, I think that just helps the offense as a whole. So I do have faith that Lamar Jackson does bounce back. Maybe doesn't have an MVP type season. He still has that in him, I think, because I don't. What's the best way to put this? I don't think what you saw in 2019. What you saw in 2019 wouldn't be crazy for him to do again, because I think as a passer he still wasn't great that season. I think the numbers look great, but when you watch, I think he did get a little bit lucky that year. So if he gets a little bit more lucky this year with maybe some of the passing touchdowns, the touchdowns were off the charts. I think he had like 37 touchdowns or something along those lines. So it was nuts. If he gets somewhere in between what he did last year and what he did 2 years ago, I think this is about where he can end up. And I think with the additions that they make from the passing game, I think it opens up things for Marquise Brown where he doesn't have to get doubled. Maybe things open up for Mark Andrews a little bit. So that's kind of where I feel in the Baltimore Ravens as a whole. Marquise Brown, I don't have him doing a whole lot better than he did last year. Again, I think this maybe opens things up for him, but maybe he doesn't get quite as many targets because I think Rashad Bateman is a pretty solid underneath player. Sammy Watkins, I don't know that he's very draftable in fantasy. I think he might, if you have some of those other receivers, he might end up being kind of annoying for fantasy because there might be some times where he has some okay games. We know Sammy Watkins, if you drafted him or if he's on your waiver wire, he's going to have good games on your bench or on the waiver wire. Then you're going to pick him up, and he's not going to do anything. So I think we know that at this point about Sammy. So not somebody I'm looking at for fantasy. Rashad Bateman, if maybe it was a more up tempo, high volume, I should say, passing offense. Maybe he's somebody I'm considering. I think sure take a flyer on him at the end of your drafts, especially in PPR leagues, because I think he is going to be a little bit better in PPR than a standard league. But does he really have that upside? No, you'll see I have an upside of 7 for him, so that might even be a little bit high. But again, some of the things I'm saying about Rashad Bateman is what people thought we'd get from Justin Jefferson year 1. Look what happened there. So I think Rashad Bateman is a good player, but maybe not somebody that you're targeting ahead of Marquise Brown. I think Marquise Brown's still the receiver that you want. Where does this put him? Probably not as a wide receiver 3. Maybe a borderline wide receiver 3, high end 4. So maybe he's on your bench or a flex player some weeks, depending on the matchup. Again, I'll get into my wide receiver rankings once I get closer to the start of the season in a couple weeks. But that's kind of where I'm feeling on the wide receivers. And just to round out the passing game, Mark Andrews, because of some of the additions, I started to think maybe he might drop off some. But they look for him so much in the red zone. I don't see why that won't continue. And again, I think it is going to open things up for him. So I do think Mark Andrews. I was talking about T.J. Hawkinson last week. I do think I actually am going to have Hawkinson just a bit below Mark Andrews. I thought I was going to have them a lot closer and maybe have Hawkinson higher because I think he's going to really be the focal point of that offense. The more I look at it, I like Baltimore's offense as a whole better. What that does is give Mark Andrews more opportunities to score touchdowns. We love touchdowns in fantasy, especially for our tight ends, because a lot of them are just going to be mediocre from a passing yards or a receiving yards standpoint, and really you're hoping for touchdowns. With Mark Andrews, he's shown the ability to score a lot in the past. I think this offense will be better than it was last year. Therefore, I think there's a very good chance, again, as you see on the projections there, 9 touchdowns is what I have for Mark Andrews. I think he can absolutely do that. So from that perspective, I am going to have Mark Andrews higher. I think Hawkinson and Andrews is maybe a little bit more of a debate in PPR leagues because I do expect Hawkinson to get a ton of targets, but I think Mark Andrews is going to have a solid year. I'm not worried too much about Rashad Bateman and Sammy Watkins taking too much away from him because, again, I think the tide rises and raises all ships, and I butchered that metaphor, but you know what I mean. I think all those additions really just raise the offense for me as a whole. The running backs. If you're drafting JK Dobbins, you're hoping that he starts catching the ball more, is really what it comes down to. Because he didn't do a whole lot of that last year. And especially in a PPR league, obviously, you're going to need him to get more catches. I'll show you a little bit of what I saw from him in the receiving game in a second. I have him at 24 catches for 168 yards. That is below average. That is more than he did last year, but it's still below average of what you're going to get from most of your running back 1s, running back 2s in fantasy. I think he is a solid player. Nothing on this film that I'm going to show you really blew me away. He has his moments. But as we were talking about, I think it was my boy Jeff on my Twitch stream on Tuesday night called JK Dobbins twitchy. I think that was and I had the credit for him for this because I think that was the perfect analogy or the perfect word to describe JK Dobbins. I think he is twitchy. He benefits from Lamar Jackson as a quarterback in the sense that they do a lot of RPO stuff, a lot of fakes to Lamar. You'll see the offense shift towards Lamar Jackson. They're afraid that he's going to take off and run, and so it opens things up for Dobbins. And from that standpoint, that's a good thing. But I don't know if it's a Lamar Jackson problem, if it's a J.K. Dobbins problem, maybe a little bit of both. He's not catching a lot of balls. And I do think there is a bit of a fallacy that Lamar Jackson is their goal line running back. J.K. Dobbins, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when he really what I'm going to show you with the film is after the Week 7 bye, JK Dobbins basically took over. That's when Mark Ingram was really phased out of this offense, and you saw a lot more Dobbins. I think there was like 6 or 7 weeks in a row that he scored a touchdown. So you saw plenty of goal line work for Dobbins. I don't see why he can't get it this year. I actually think 10 touchdowns is very, very obtainable for him based on what he did last year. I think he had 7 or 8, and again, he didn't start scoring many touchdowns until the second half of the year. So if you want to project out what he did over the second half of the season and say, I think that's what he'll do over the course of the whole season, then you're going to have him with 13, 14 rushing touchdowns, and he's going to be borderline running back 1, even without the receiving. And NBA, what's up, man? We were just about to get into Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and what you mentioned the other night, and what I was going to give you credit for, if you trust me, even though you weren't here, which I am on board with, is you see, I have 155 rushing attempts for Gus Edwards and 220 for J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards is a pretty good player. I think everybody who drafts J.K. Dobbins, he's the fun rookie last year. He's somebody that we want to do really well. We think he has some more talent than Gus Edwards. Edwards is a good player. He's another one, doesn't really catch a lot of balls. But they're paying him a lot of money. Not that that's to dictate why I think he's going to get a lot of work, because plenty of guys, will get good contracts and really not get the touches to justify it. But point is, in the second half of the season, J.K. Dobbins was your lead back, but it was by no means a case where J.K. Dobbins was dominating the carries. I don't expect that to happen this year. So I do have Dobbins for about 65, 70 more carries, about 450 more rushing yards, and to double his touchdowns, and really to double his output almost in the passing game as well. But Gus Edwards is going to be involved. He's going to be involved a decent amount. It's going to be frustrating for you if you draft J.K. Dobbins. I look at him as a low-end running back too, and NBA loves my projections for the rushing yards. So why don't I get into it now? Might as well. So J.K. Dobbins, again, I looked primarily what he looked at as once he really took over that backfield. Again, he took it over, but was he the clear number 1 in front of Gus Edwards? Sort of, kind of. So I'll show you a little bit of what I saw from J.K. Dobbins that I think really defines him as a player, and just in case you weren't watching a lot of Ravens games last year, because, again, rookie season last year. So I wanted you to get familiar with J.K. Dobbins, because he's somebody you might be considering around maybe the 3rd round or so, and I want to tell you why, maybe he is a 3rd to 4th round player, maybe not anything higher than that for me. So again, I'm starting with Week 8 when he really started to take over. This one, I think this is one of those examples that I said of where having Lamar does help him to an extent, because what you're going to see, I believe, is sort of more of an option play here. See them crash in on him, and that opens up so much to the outside there. Breaks some tackles there as well, so gotta like that, and I think that's an example of where he benefits from having Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. We'll go to Week 9 now. This wasn't a big run, but this was I talked about twitchy. They credited Jeff for that. This is only a 3-yard run, but I'm gonna even slow this down some, because you got Darius Leonard, one of the best middle linebackers in the league, pretty much close to leading the league in tackles. Watch this move where it looks like he has him lined up here. That cut outside and then back inside. All of a sudden, Leonard is, and I'll play it in faster motion here. All of a sudden, Leonard is like 2-3 yards away from him, and it looks like he's got a pretty good shot at him. And this is the kind of stuff that I like to see from J.K. Dobbins. I mean, that's awesome. It's only a 3-yard run, because there's really not much room to run there. But we want to see if he gets a little bit of holes here. Can he break some bigger runs? And you like the ability to kind of, what I see a lot from him is the stop and acceleration, kind of all at one time. or very, very quickly. Stop and then go. And that's what you want to see from the running back. So I thought that was a good play to highlight there. Let's see. This example of maybe what I don't like from Dobbins. Let's see. I got 30 seconds, I think, to go in this. And maybe what I'd like to see more of is him breaking more tackles. And I realized I talked about this on, I think it was Monday night. Break some tackles, man. You got one guy to beat out here, all that room. Run that guy over. Get some extra yards. I believe it's a corner out there. It might be a safety, but that's disappointing. It's disappointing that I think NBA. You looked up. You mentioned the broken tackle stats, I think, the other night when we were talking. What was it, like 8 on the whole season or something like that? Whatever it was not very good. So, my Bateman projection in terms of touchdowns might be a little high, but I do think Lamar throws more touchdowns this year, and that's kind of where I come to from that. So, 'cause it's not like I expect Sammy Watkins to be catching a lot of them. So let me go to. Let's see. I think this same game. This is another one that's disappointing, and you see the rain. You do see the rain there, but this is a game on the line, 4th down. I think he's actually lined up at wide receiver out here. 4th down, nobody around him, drops the ball. I know the elements were there, but in terms of the rain, but that was really disappointing. So now we're going to week 11, 13, 18. This is an example of, again, a lot of good runs. It's kind of hard to separate sometimes running back play from offensive line play. So this one he does benefit from some good blocking. But I like the vision here. I like the couple cuts there. Again, it's not so much like it's the cuts and then get up the field a little bit. It's not. It doesn't take him a lot of time to get going again. So that's what I like about him from that perspective. Again, I mentioned he got a lot of touchdowns. He did, but doesn't run with a lot of power. And I think if you're going to get him touchdowns, maybe this isn't going to be the way to do it too often. He does get the touchdown here from 2 yards out, but again, just stopped. Basically, doesn't go anywhere after he gets hit. Barely gets the touchdown. Barely breaks the plane there. But that's just one example. There are many examples of that I saw from straight up the middle running. First guy brings him down, and so from that perspective, I don't like him as much as a goal line back. But there are some things that I think I'm going to show you a little bit later. Week 13. This is a really good run, and it basically shows you a lot of what I was already talking about in terms of. This is something that they'll also. You'll see a decent amount from them. And I think this is another one where Lamar kind of freezes people here to stay inside. Or actually, this is a different one. But let me see. Actually, there's a. There it is. I didn't put the time down. So it might be better to even show the other angle, because you can see if you zoom out here, watch the kind of defense just stay with Lamar here, and then there opens up all this stuff to the outside. Also, if you watch the wide receivers here, they follow them. That frees things up. But what you like about the run is the speed to be able to get to the outside. beats I think that's Alden Smith there. So what you like about that run is really the speed. But there's a lot of things in that offense play design that really result in the 30-yard run. Just as much as, if not more than JK Dobbins did there. So I got a couple more for you. So 11:54. I'm going to show you a rare. This is week 15. I'm going to show you a rare time when he actually does break a tackle. So it's not that he's completely incapable of it. So again, it's kind of an arm tackle. It's really not much, but if you're looking for broken tackles from him, that's the best I can really show you. But he's kind of slippery in that play and does get upfield for more. So here is I saw a bunch of this, and I want to show you this with a couple more plays. This might be the best way that I saw that they really that they used the two running backs on the field at once. So I'll pause it here. You actually have I think he's lined up over here, but you have JK Dobbins lined up at wide receiver, and you have Gus Edwards in the backfield. And you end up getting Gus as a blocker, and you get a run from Dobbins here. And this is something I saw them use multiple times, and it was effective a lot. You get Dobbins out in space. Rather than have him get running up the middle, which I said he's not as good at doing. And again, watch the linebackers. Watch, I think it's either the linebacker or the defensive lineman. Yeah. Freezes because he's so scared of Lamar. And that's where that's where Dobbins does benefit. If you don't have a running back that's giving you that much of a running threat, or a quarterback that's giving you that much of a running threat, this might not go for nearly as far. But again, Dobbins almost scores there. He uses his speed, so it's not all Lamar, but I do like that. So 7 broken tackles for Dobbins, 11 for Gus. Yeah. So yeah, that was the best I could really show you for as far as. And then I'll show you one more that's kind of a bonus because it's his best run of the season. I think maybe the defense was worn down at the end of the game here. I think this is his last run of the season, actually, or at least. But gets up the middle, buzz break that stiff arm that linebacker there, and then it's all speed. So you see he does have some good top end speed here. No one can catch him from the defense, so he scores on that one. So good play from him, But again, and this is Huntley, this is not Lamar Jackson at quarterback. This was week 17. People might be thinking about going on vacation by this point. The game's over, but still, I got to show you that because it's his best run yardage-wise of the season. So, again, I like some things of what I saw from J.K. Dobbins. I didn't see a lot from him. I didn't see a lot from him as a receiver, and I think for him to become a reliable running back one, take that leap from maybe being a running back 2 to a running back 1, he's going to have to catch the ball more. I don't know that he's going to be doing that. So he might get some touchdowns. I didn't show you much of it, but there were some other plays where, again, they get him more in space, not running right up the middle, because I don't really think that's his game too much. So they did use him in a lot of different ways, and it was maybe running a little bit outside, utilizing the blocking more. But I don't know that he showed much that Gus Edwards couldn't have easily scored on a lot of those plays that JK Dobbins did. But if Dobbins gets to work, I think this offense is going to be very good. I think he can score double-digit touchdowns on the season. So that's where I'm at with the Baltimore Ravens. If you got any other questions, I'll take a look at that projection. But I kind of, when I give Lamar Jackson 32 passing touchdowns, because I do think he's going to be better, I start to look around at who I can maybe give them to. So I got Bateman with 6. 650 yards is not a lot. I do like Bateman a lot as a player, though. So I do think potentially has a chance to be somebody that they look at in the end zone a decent amount. So again, these are baseline projections. We'll kind of see where they end up going from here. I don't know that he has. I mentioned upside. There's not a ton of upside from there. Maybe from the yardage perspective, but we'll see. And again, 17-game season. 6 touchdowns in 17 games isn't quite so much. So Against Buffalo in the playoffs, both Gus and Dobbins had 10 carries. Dobbins did have 3 receptions. Yeah, he what did I have him for? I had him basically averaging 1.5 per game. There's maybe some upside from there, but maybe not a lot. So, Bengals. Oh, the Bengals. Big additions really were, if you're looking at the draft, Jamar Chase. That's the one. They do add Riley Reef at left tackle. They don't really address the offensive line too much beyond that, though. A lot of people thought they might go, and they go Jackson Carman. I think that was a second round pick. So we'll see if those moves end up helping them as early as this season. So I don't have much Gus tape, but I'll talk about him as the season goes on. But again, I don't know that Gus is going to be somebody that you're really targeting in many drafts. 728 and 5 touchdowns. Those are solid numbers. That's somebody that you might take at the end of your draft. But the problem again, 10 catches for 100 yards I have. So that really under 1,000 yards total. That's going to limit his upside. He's maybe more of a running back 4 to 5. So that's kind of where I'm at with Gus. He's a good player, but with Dobbins in front of him, I don't know that it's really going to pay off for you too much in fantasy. We'll see. So, and AJ Green is gone, and those are really and Gio Bernard. So from a fantasy perspective, there are a lot of changes to the defense as well. But from a fantasy football perspective, that's kind of what I'm looking at here is that AJ Green is gone, Jamar Chase is in, and hopefully Joe Burrow is healthy. This is something we're going to have to monitor as the preseason goes on. So I have Joe Burrow. I'm factoring in a little bit of potential for him to maybe not quite be ready or to be sluggish out of the gate. We'll see what happens with him recovering from the knee. So Mixon or Dobbins when you draft in PPR, it's going to be, especially PPR, it's Mixon. And I have probably looking at, I'm almost definitely looking at, I have in my 17-game projection for Dobbins, I have him getting the same amount of points in a standard league, basically, as I have for Mixon in a 14-game projection. So I think Mixon's a better player. So that's where I come out with that. He's going to catch, I think he catches more passes. So Mixon, definitely more risky of a player. If you look at my safety scores, safety of a 6, whereas I have Dobbins as a safety of an 8. I have basically similar upside. Really the upside for Dobbins comes in how good this offense can be and how many touchdowns he can score. So I put Uzama in there for tight end, but I don't think I'm going to be drafting any Bengals tight end. I just wrote that in for now. I don't. We'll see if he's healthy. So Joe Burrow again. They threw the ball a ton with Joe Burrow is really what it comes down to, and I think when I look at that, the level to which they were throwing the ball, I don't know how much they ease him into things when he comes back, but if he comes anywhere near throwing for as much as he did last year, I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd are all top 40 fantasy wide receivers. I think Jamar Chase is going to be my favorite. Talent-wise, I think he gives you... Higgins and Boyd really don't have the speed. I think what Jamar Chase adds is more of the speed element that you were probably missing in this offense last year. You obviously weren't getting it with A.J. Green either, and John Ross really, he gave you speed, but almost nothing else. So, we'll see what happens with at tight end. But here are my projections, and you see that in a 16-game projection for Jamar Chase, I have T. Higgins, him very, very close to T. Higgins for a 17-game projection. So I am, especially when I start to look at upside, I think Jamar Chase as a talent is a better player. Will he be that player in year one? We'll see. 72 catches for 970 yards in 16 games. I think he can definitely pass 1,000 yards in his first season. The problem for these guys, again, it might be high. This is I was talking about high volume for Baltimore. This isn't really high volume. I have in 15 games, I have Joe Burrow throwing 590 times compared to 450 for Lamar Jackson in 17 games. Joe Burrow is going to more than likely be down a lot in games, the same as he was last year. Either way, this was a pass-first offense, and you would hope if you're drafting Joe Burrow and these wide receivers that they open things up even more. They have more trust in Joe Burrow in year 2. But, is it a lot of attempt? How efficient is it really too? It might be high volume in terms of an attempts standpoint, but how efficient is it? How much are they scoring? So where I mentioned the attempts, I have Lamar Jackson with 8 more in 2 more games. I have him with 8 more touchdowns. So I do think a lot of these numbers might end up coming in garbage time. You might not really get the touchdowns for these guys that you might get for the Ravens, but yardage wise, I think, and catch wise, I think I have them all very, very close. But again, when I start to look at upside, which is when I'm outside my top 30, which is, I do think I'm going to have all these guys outside my top 30. Jamar Chase might be the closest to cracking that, because I think the upside of him as a player is just higher. The chance that he can be this year's Justin Jefferson, absolutely can see that happening. So, I think as of my rookie wide receivers, he has the highest upside of any of them in year 1, and really for his career. So I'm going to have Jamar Chase, a little bit of T. Higgins, but I'm going to show you a little bit of T. Higgins in a second, show you what I saw from him. Again, Chase is giving you that speed element that you really don't get from Higgins. Higgins was actually getting, especially earlier in the season when they had Burrow, his yards per catch were much, much higher than Boyd. But I don't know that it was really as a deep ball guy. He has some of that in him. But when he's winning with deep balls, he's doing it with size and speed. He might not be creating the separation, but he is using his body to get himself open, to get in between the ball and the defender, and high point the ball. He has some yards after the catch ability that I'll show you. But is he going to be, if we're talking like a yards per target perspective, again, I have Jamar Chase with with 6 fewer targets and just as many yards. So I think Chase, and I think I might even be a little bit low on that, but we'll see what way they use Chase. Projections for rookies, it's a guessing game no matter what, but we don't really have a baseline to work off of here. So I do think I'm gonna like Jamar Chase more than Higgins. I'll tell you. Let me look this up, because I'm now curious how far in front of them or where they are going in drafts. I want to look that up really quick. Actually, I might actually already have it, but Tyler Boyd is going to be the lowest of them, really, because I think his upside is really the lowest. He's really more of an underneath player, where he's going to catch the ball more in that area of the field. That limits his upside. He is more safe than the other guys. You'll see from the safety number that Tyler Boyd is the safer player. But if you're just looking for safety at that point, I don't know that you're going to win your league. You're going to get a fine season from Tyler Boyd, but a lot of what he did, if I expect T. Higgins to do a little bit better this year, if I expect Jamar Chase to have a really good year, who does that hurt? I think it ends up hurting Tyler Boyd. So, because I do think that Higgins can take a lot of that underneath stuff, and you'll see that in a second. So, right now, T. Higgins in drafts looks like is this standard? According to Fantasy Pros, they have T. Higgins 26th, Jamar Chase 31, and Tyler Boyd 40th. I'm probably going to end up swapping Chase and Higgins. Have maybe Chase just inside my top 30 and Higgins just out of it. Because, again, I don't know that Higgins is really going to be your downfield threat. I do think there is an upside in this offense where he can be really good, but I don't know that I see him taking that big leap now that Jamar Chase is there. And I think 40th for Boyd, if you're just by that point looking for upside, maybe he doesn't have it. So will he finish higher than 40th? There's a good chance. Does he finish higher than like 25th? Probably not, and that's kind of what you have to look at. So Chase and Higgins are basically going the same in ADP. So okay, so it looks like in terms of I would have Chase a little bit higher. Again, I do think I am going to have them close. I'm looking at Fantasy Pros, and this is basically a site that does a collection of expert rankings. So I'm surprised about that. I would think that Jamar Chase is sort of the new hot name that people are going to be targeting. So I am surprised to see Higgins ahead of Chase in a standard league. I would guess that if I go to PPR, I'm seeing actually Jamar Chase 36th and T Higgins 25th. I guess because they just expect Jamar Chase to be more of a speed downfield threat. And then Tyler Boyd at 33, so even him above Jamar Chase. I do think Boyd is definitely better in a PPR, but I can't imagine drafting Boyd over Chase. And Mixon, if you've drafted Mixon in the past, especially last year, you might be somebody that feels burned by him. But when he plays, he's excellent. And I think the better that this passing game is, the more you're not going to have people crashing down, 8 men in the box for Mixon. How good is this offensive line going to be? That is always the question with the Bengals. But I do think that there's no, Samaje Perine behind Mixon. I think he's the unquestioned lead back here, and I think he's going to get a ton of rushes, and he catches the ball a good amount when he's in there too. So to me, he is somebody that is maybe going to be, let me look again at sort of rankings and see where he's going around, because I think he's maybe not going to quite be a top 10 running back for me, but maybe close. So right now in a PPR league in Fantasy Pros, Mixon is 11th with Nick Chubb 10th. Let's see, it's about 16 points per game. Yeah, I'm going to be taking Chubb there. Aaron Jones, that's a close one. I might be taking Aaron Jones there. Jonathan Taylor, I'm not somebody who's very high on Jonathan Taylor, but if I look at him in a PPR league, I think it's close. I think I might go Taylor over Mixon because he's a little bit safer, but that's really close. Point is that those guys are around that fringe top 10 area. They're going to be, I think Mixon in a PPR league and in a standard league is maybe an early second round pick. So Mixon or CEH. I haven't done CEH yet. I have a feeling it's going to be Mixon. I'm not a big CEH fan. I know that's a really good offense, but I'm not a big CEH guy, so I'm probably going to be going Mixon, but I'll be able to tell you that probably next week when I do my AFC West projections. So let's see. I talked wide receivers. I talked Mixon. Might as well show you some film. So again, this is going to be the T. Higgins film. So what I looked at was, what I'm going to show you is the film with Joe Burrow, because I think that's what's most important to show you. I talked a little bit about Higgins already, but Burrow went down in I think it was week 10, so I'm going to show you basically up until week 8. I'm going to be showing you plays there, but what I saw in Higgins was a less explosive, less quick. It is going to sound like I'm now saying you should absolutely draft him super high. His game reminds me of Michael Thomas, and his size reminds me of Michael Thomas. He is basically Michael Thomas light. I don't think he's as good as Michael Thomas. I think he plays similar to Michael Thomas, but maybe is not quite the same athlete that Michael Thomas is. So so I think that's the best I can tell you from just to preview what I'm about to show you, and then we'll get into this now. So let's see. Week 2, 320. I'm not even gonna bother showing you because you're gonna see plenty. I was gonna show you that he doesn't really create separation, and this is an incompletion where he just doesn't really get open too much. But I did see him as the season went on. I saw him improve a lot from that perspective in terms of creating separation. So So this is a good play, and this is against my Eagles. You'll see plenty against the Eagles today. This is 85, I believe. He's right here. He gets open. Good double move, but it's just a bad throw from Burrow. Underthrows him. Maddox gets up celebrating like he did something, but I don't know that that was really him. It's hard to tell if he even gets his hands in there to break it up or if it's just underthrown. But you see he's kind of coming back to the ball or falling away from the ball with his arms out. It's just not a great throw. And that's one where you saw him kind of beat the cornerback with a good double move there, but it's just not a good throw. So let's see. 226. I did like him as a red zone option. Your big body. So I think this is him here. This Nate Gary, I'm so glad he's gone from the Eagles. Watch the linebacker who I think they expect here that there's going to be some coverage to the outside here. He turns around and runs, but basically he's wide open. Maybe that's not open if that's better defense, but they do look for Higgins a good amount. I will now show you also maybe some downside of Higgins, and I will get into some better plays because I do think as the season went on he did improve. The hands were not good for T. Higgins. A lot of drops. He is up here somewhere. I think over here. Oh, no. Okay. And that's another one that the cornerback might have gotten his hands in there, but it's a pretty good throw. There's enough of this that these 50-50 balls, he's a big, strong dude. He needs to win more of them. I would love to see more of that. So, we'll go to week 4, 11, 29. Give the DB credit there, but there's a lot of examples of those, and I'm not going to show you all of them. But there's too many of those where the receiver doesn't really get much of the ball, and it doesn't end up catching it. But this is a lot of that slant game. This is good yards after the catch. This is against the Jags. Everybody does good against the Jags. If you don't do good against the Jags, I don't think you're very good. Maybe that's not true. That's not fair. But you got to do good against the Jags. So again, hands, back shoulder throw up here, good throw, drops it. Maybe you can't really see that very well. Drops it. That one the DB definitely did not get his hands in there. So here's again. This is more in the short yardage. I don't. You see maybe some top end speed with him, but it doesn't seem to be the way. He's not really creating separation with his routes. Maybe he has some straight line speed, but coming in and out of routes. He's a good route runner, but he's not somebody that's going to be a home run threat on some of those balls. He's got some of that in him, which you might see in some of these. But let's see, week 5, 10:05. We're up here. Okay, sorry. Let me go back to that. He's up here. I think this is Marcus Peters. See a little move inside and then goes back out, creates separation for himself. So, I'm not saying he can't create separation, but he's not somebody who's maybe creating separation like on some of these downfield routes and a home run threat from that perspective. So 13. No, I won't even show that one. So week 6, 51. This is a huge play. So, and this is example, good speed, but maybe not that huge top end speed here. Down the middle. Good throw. I don't know what, if I go back here, I don't really know what the corner's looking at. He kind of stops. So that helps. But what I'd love to see him do here is score. And he just doesn't have the speed to break away from the offense there. So I don't know that that's anything that he really did in the route here. If I pause it, I want to see if Burrow really did anything with any kind of a fake here. No, just threw it. I don't know. Maybe he must have thought that was going to the underneath wide receiver and just didn't really see the ball well. But if the corner just stays with him, that's probably not even a completion. So I don't know. Again, I don't know that that's anything that Higgins really did all that well. So this is a good one. This is a good one. This shows. We're talking about hands. I think this is Higgins here, or yeah. Over the middle, gets popped, hangs onto the ball. So you gotta like that. But there were a lot of drops. I don't like that. So what's Jamar Chase's speed in combine? Faster than Thomas. Yeah, not top end speed, but he's a good route runner. And there's a lot of that. Those slants, maybe some of the outs. That's a lot of where he kind of excels at. And I got like 2 more to show you. This one is a good example of, again, he wins with his size. Let's see. I think it is this one. I didn't write down the time, but yeah, here he is down here. The defender, I think, wants a pass interference here. Maybe there is one, but not a lot of separation, but still, comes back for the ball. Uses his size to create separation at the end. Maybe his arms a little bit to push off there, but it's what you like to see. If he's not going to create separation, he needs to win. He needs to catch those balls where he is covered, and he does a good job there. So, and then we'll look at one more. This was just, I think this was a good example of him having some good chemistry with Joe Burrow, which is what you always need. I think he comes across the field here. You're going to see this one's a little bit, they're going to have to improv here because what's not there, it's not there right away. Burrow kind of scrambles around. I was saying he comes across the field. I was thinking of something else there. But he basically has to run like 3 different routes here and just kind of tries to get himself open for Burrow once it's not there. See him up here. Stops, comes back, then finally goes, okay, no, I'm going to run upfield. And again, maybe a little push off again, but he's getting himself open despite not really being open, and he's catching some of those balls. So gotta like to see that. So, but I think that's kind of what Higgins is at this point. Again, this offense needed somebody who has some more speed. I would say Jamar Chase probably is faster than Michael Thomas. Yes, I don't know off the top of my head what Michael Thomas's combine speed might have been, but that's where I'm at with Higgins. So I think he's got a little bit of the yards after the catch ability that you saw. Good straight line speed, but not great straight line speed. But he's winning a lot underneath. In similar ways that Michael Thomas does, but he's not as good of an athlete. He's not as quick. So I think there is a chance that if he gets some time, like in the slot, because they did move him around kind of all over the place. He played some slot, works there. I think what Higgins might do, if it ends up being 2 guys, I think it's Chase and Higgins, because I think Higgins does a lot of what Boyd does, but at a bigger size. And so we'll see what happens there with the 2 of them. I feel pretty confident based on Jamar Chase's skill set and just really talent as a whole, what he does well, that he will be the best fantasy wide receiver on this team. So that's where I'm at with the Bengals. Again, if you're not already subscribed, click that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. That helps me out a ton. We're going through AFC North. And I got started a little bit late due to technical difficulties, but I'll try to get through this a little bit quicker. I don't have film for the Browns, but what I will show you, or will tell you, is that as I go through the changes to this that were made with this team, and you'll see from an offensive perspective, none. There's nothing notable from the offense. Really, the biggest change is that Odell Beckham, we think, is going to be coming back and healthy. So that's really the biggest thing impacting this offense. They added a lot on defense. This could be a very, very good team. I think it's hard to pick anybody over the Chiefs, but I think there is a very good chance that this team could be in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. So, as I look at the Browns, Baker Mayfield is is probably my favorite fantasy quarterback that is going outside the top 15 that I expect to finish inside of it, and he's going to be one of my favorite sleeper type quarterbacks, and that's for somebody that in Fantasy Pros right now they have him 18th, so they have him behind Carson Wentz, behind Kirk Cousins, behind Trevor Lawrence, behind Matt Ryan, Joe Burrow. Just look really quick at where I kind of might put him in Joe Burrow. I probably will have Burrow higher, but again, Burrow is 13th right now, and Baker Mayfield is 18th. If I'm looking at Kirk Cousins compared to him, at that point, I'd like Baker's upside a little bit more. I might go I might go Baker over Kirk Cousins. Carson Wentz, I'd probably go with him over Carson Wentz. So, Trevor Lawrence is, let's see. I definitely go with him over Trevor Lawrence. So, Baker Mayfield is probably going to be inside my top 15. I don't think you're going to see him inside a lot of other 15. I'm not going to show any Baker film, but if you have time, I did a lot of Baker Mayfield film review. On my YouTube, check that out. I have about a 15-20 minute video on Baker Mayfield. So if you want to see some Baker, I didn't do it because I've done plenty of Baker. Check that out whenever you have time. Check my YouTube for Baker Mayfield. And what I looked at, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but there was a stretch mid-season where Cleveland had these really, really bad weather games. It was either like huge rain or like 30-mile-an-hour winds, and I know they're a run-heavy team, but they were running way more than usual. Both teams did in those games. Baker did not have to throw much. They didn't want him throwing much because of the weather. After those games, that's the film that I look at. I look at what he did, in the wild card game or in the playoffs as well against the Chiefs and Pittsburgh. What I'm looking at with him is, and I've talked about this a lot lately, Josh Allen was rated lower because they don't throw the ball. They don't throw the ball enough. They don't change an offensive coordinator, and the next season they come out and decide, you know what, we're throwing the ball more. We're going to throw the ball more, and Josh Allen becomes a top 3 fantasy quarterback. I don't know that Baker Mayfield's going to do that. I don't know that they're going to throw to that extent. I get that there's some downside, that they might still be really, really run heavy. But I think from that, after those weather games on, they did throw the ball more. They threw the ball more than they did in the first half of the season. And Baker Mayfield looked really, really good doing it. A lot of good downfield throws. He's got a huge arm. I really, really like what I saw from Baker Mayfield the second half of the season. I think this could finally be the breakout with Baker. I have him inside my top 15. You're not going to need to take him in the top 15. If you're waiting for quarterback, I suggest taking Baker Mayfield towards the end of your draft. I think he's not going to cost you much, and I think a lot of people don't think he has a lot of upside because he's not going to throw the ball a lot. I think he could throw the ball a lot, and if he does, how will he do? And what I show you in the film there is that I think he will do really well. So Baker, again, one of my favorite sleeper quarterbacks of the season. What is difficult with this is Odell Beckham. I project him for 13 games, which is not a lot. But still have him with 55 catches for about 750 yards, 6 touchdowns. You see the upside in safety. I think he's got an upside of 9. I think we've seen plenty of him. Even last season, I thought when he was actually getting the ball, I think there were times when Odell looked awesome still. Coming off this injury, maybe if you say he maybe has been banged up too much and maybe just isn't the same athlete that he was. He's still really young. We'll see. He's probably not somebody that's going to be in my top 20, but probably close to it. I do think he has the upside. And again, if they throw the ball more, he's going to benefit. Jarvis Landry's going to benefit. We're going to hope that Nick Chubb's going to benefit. We'll hope he starts catching more balls. So what I was going to say is actually, I want Nick Chubb catching the ball more. Is really what I want. 32 catches for 272 yards is average to slightly below average when it comes to these top running backs. I mentioned in a standard league, I mentioned Mixon and Chubb, where I am slightly leaning Chubb because of these more safe player than Mixon. I am not even thinking about it twice when it comes to him in a standard league. Really, honestly, at this point, I'm looking at him having about 227 fantasy points. I have him at 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, and add another 272 receiving. That's about 14 standard points per game and 227 total. So 14 and 227. When I look at Aaron Jones, even with Aaron Rodgers, those are very, very similar numbers. So, and I was mentioning that I'm pretty high on Aaron Jones. I think Nick Chubb is probably going to be a borderline top 10 running back in PPR leagues, and I think Nick Chubb is going to be a borderline top 5 running backs in standard leagues. So, no, again, I expect them to throw the ball more, and I am hoping that Nick Chubb becomes more involved, because actually, let me pull this up. I think this is important to maybe look at, because I think everyone also looks at last year and says, "Oh, well, look what he did last year. How can you put him in for 32 catches?" It probably is high, but again, I do expect him to throw the ball more. In 12 games, he had 16 catches. But in 16 games 2 years ago, he had 36. So 32 is not crazy at all. And 32 puts him almost average for running backs. So he's had more than this in the past. So I don't see why not. I don't see why he can't get into that 30 range. So that's where I have him at. And Kareem Hunt, he's somebody that's going to be hard to start in standard leagues. He's going to be maybe a flex in PPR leagues because you see the receiving numbers. That's what he's done since he's come to Cleveland. He's been a very reliable pass catcher for them. So that's what you're looking at there. Austin Hooper, really, you're hoping for touchdowns. You're hoping again that this is a really good offense and he ends up catching a lot of touchdowns. He's not somebody I'm super high on. I am very curious to see what happens with the other tight ends. If David Njoku isn't on this team by week 1, Harrison Bryant is going to be one of my deep tight end sleepers that maybe you don't even have to draft. Maybe you'd need an Austin Hooper injury for him to become more relevant. But if you got a watch list, add Harrison Bryant to your watch list. When I was going through the Baker Mayfield film, I saw some really good plays from Harrison Bryant. The other one that really stood out was Donovan Peoples-Jones. And this is another one where you might need an injury. You're probably not drafting him. You might need, and we're talking injuries. Odell Beckham. I mean, come on. We've seen that happen plenty in the past. When Donovan Peoples-Jones got targeted, he made big plays. He looked really good. I was really impressed every time I saw Baker targeting him. I didn't project him for anything here. You're probably not even drafting him. Like you mentioned, a lot of mouths to feed. I kind of threw Higgins and Peoples-Jones on here because I think they are relevant names, but maybe not people that you're drafting. I think Peoples-Jones, though, has the higher upside than Higgins. Higgins is fine. Higgins is like low end, like a worse Tyler Boyd, basically, is kind of the way I look at him. But Peoples-Jones, DPJ showed me something on the film. So he's somebody that I think definitely has some upside there. So if you're looking for upside at the end of your drafts, I think again, there's probably gonna be other guys you're looking for at the end of your drafts, but deeper leagues, watch list. Again, if Beckham goes down, if any of the wide receivers go down, I would not be surprised if we see a breakout from Peoples-Jones. He's sort of more of a deep sleeper guy for me this year. So that's where I'm at with the Browns. Again, no film. Check my YouTube channel if you want to see some Baker Mayfield, because I've been talking a lot about how I expect good things from him, and I'll show you why. I show you some good and bad, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of really good downfield throws, a lot of good stuff there. So I think Peoples-Jones could definitely benefit. All those pass catchers will benefit from Mayfield throwing the ball more. Steelers. They lose offensive linemen, and they get a new running back. They lose James Conner. So Najee Harris is kind of the big change to this offense. This offensive line already wasn't very good last year. They could be even worse this year. We'll have to see how this goes. But again, Harris is really the addition here, and maybe I'll start with him since I'll get into the passing game after this. So projected record for Cleveland, I don't know that I have a record, but 12 wins maybe. Their division is really tough. I think Pittsburgh could be solid. Baltimore is going to be really good. So tough division, but they could win the division. They could definitely win the division. So again, I mentioned I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the AFC Championship game. They have a really good roster. People like to laugh at the Browns. They're a joke, but they could be really good. So I'll start with Harris, and maybe the two things I worry about with Harris. You should see I don't really have, what is it going to be, Benny Snell behind him. I don't really worry about attempts too much. What I worry about with Harris is, again, the offensive line is not very good. They need a running back who is going to be able to pass block. A lot of times, rookies, one of the things that keeps them off the field is the pass blocking. Najee Harris, same thing I mentioned with Travis Etienne when I looked at him with the Jags preview. Najee Harris isn't a very good pass blocker from what I've seen when I was watching film on him. So I worry that could potentially keep him off the field on third downs, just off the field in total. And that's where I do have him in for 220 attempts and maybe not the 250, because I do worry that again, the offensive line combined with his pass blocking ability, I wonder if that's going to keep him off the field more than people would like. 220 might be a little low. I have him on the upside of 9. I can absolutely see more carries here. If you're just drafting him because you're assuming carries, I hesitate to do things like that. I do think as a talent, everything else he offers is really solid. I want to even give him more receptions, but again, I'm hoping that he gets better as a pass blocker so that he can be in there on third downs more often, because he's a really good pass catcher. I'd love to give him more than 40 catches, and I think what I saw him at times. I mentioned this when we were doing some draft prep stuff. I saw him run like Derrick Henry. I don't think he's Derrick Henry. I saw him run in that style, but with the added pass catching ability, it looked almost more like an Aaron Jones type guy. So, like a Mark Ingram kind of player. So, we'll see what you get from Harris. I don't know that I expect a huge yards per carry. Even if he does get the ton of rushes, how much does the offensive line hurt? He's not, maybe he doesn't have the most top end speed. So that's where I'm at with Harris. So I think in a standard and a PPR, he's probably going to be more of a, I mentioned some of the low end. Let's see, who's maybe like a Miles Sanders. I think you're going to be drafting him around where I have Miles Sanders. I think I'm going to have him above David Montgomery. I think I'm going to have him above, let's see, some other guy, the Jacksonville guys. Maybe Mike Davis is then. I do really like Mike Davis in PPR. I think that's maybe where you're looking at because Mike Davis should have the job to himself as well. Maybe Mike Davis doesn't quite have the upside of him, so maybe I might take Harris over Davis. Myles Gaskin, I do like Myles Gaskin this year, so so that's maybe the range where I'm looking at. Again, sort of maybe a fourth round guy. A better runner than I think so. But the pass catching ability reminded me of Aaron Jones, I guess was sort of the point. But I don't think Aaron Jones is bad. I think he definitely benefits from being in that offense. But this for some reason zoomed out. Let me just get a quick refresh of this. So the passing game, what everyone talked about was Ben Roethlisberger can't throw downfield anymore. So that's very, very close in what I have them. But I think Mike Davis does have the potential to get more carries because I don't see anybody really challenging him for carries there. But I think it'll be very close. So Ben doesn't throw it outfield anymore. That's what you hear. I think part of it is the fault of the offensive line. I think Ben isn't really mobile anymore, so you have to get the ball out. And if the offensive line sucks, he can't hold onto the ball too long, and that affects guys like Deontay Johnson and mainly Chase Claypool. I think his ability to maybe do some of those downfield, get some of those downfield catches. Where I might start to shift things, and we'll see how things start to look in camp, with the reports that are coming out, how they look in preseason. I don't know how much Ben will play in preseason. We'll see. I think it's only 3 games this year. But if there's reports all over the place that they are going to run a lot more this year than they are going to throw. Because right now I do have them throwing a little bit less than they did last year, but not a ton less. Davis does have older legs than Harris, but I don't see why. I don't see why they don't just run Davis into the ground because he's not their future. Again, I'm basing it off of talent too. I think you could easily say that Najee Harris is a better talent than Mike Davis. I think they're both really good in the passing game. But again, these are baseline projections. These kind of get me started with my rankings, and then I really start to see, okay, can he do better than this? What are the odds that he hits this projection? How safe is he? Can he exceed this projection? Can he far exceed this projection? And Najee Harris, again, he has more upside than Mike Davis. So whereas I put those baseline rankings in, I think Najee Harris's ability to pass those projections is better than what I think is more likely than to pass than Mike Davis is to pass his projections. So that's where I'm at with the two of them. But again, getting back to the passing game, we'll see as we start to hear more about this offense. But I sort of looked at the second half of the season because their first 10 games, Ben was throwing a ton. He was looking like old Ben, or young Ben, I guess you should say. And he was taking shots downfield. I saw a lot to Chase Claypool earlier in the season. And then everyone's yards per catch dropped. His yards per attempt dropped. He was just not throwing the ball downfield as much. So I actually really wanted to look at this from a before and after perspective with Ben. I wanted to see, does it really show up, especially when I'm looking at Chase Claypool? Does it really show up on film that Ben just simply can't throw downfield anymore? I don't think that he can't throw downfield anymore. I mentioned the offensive line problems, and I think all these guys can win in short yardage, so that then it's not a surprise that they are throwing more short yardage throws. But I do think that Ben didn't have as much zip on his ball by the second half of the season. The downfield throws weren't as good. He completed some of them, just not a whole lot. So the worry is that what you saw at the end of last year is what continues all throughout this year. Or does some time off actually help him? So this is a 15-game projection I have for Ben because he has missed some time in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised with this offensive line with his age that a few tough hits and he is missing some time. So these numbers are actually putting him in line to be, close to that Baker Mayfield territory that I was talking about. I don't know that he really has the same upside that Baker does, and I'm sure people will agree with me with that or disagree with me on that. I actually didn't put that in. I was thinking for Ben and Roethlisberger around like a 7 to 8 upside, so we'll say like 7. And how safe is he? I don't think he is all that safe, so maybe a 7 for both. I'll have to think about that one a little bit more. But when I look at the pass catchers, I think there was a point where all 3 of them were top 30 guys. I talked about Cincinnati. I think they could be top 40. I think they do have have top 30 upside. All 3 of these wide receivers already showed there was a point where they were taking turns. Basically, two out of the 3 of them would hit each week and be worth playing. And Deontay Johnson was awesome. He was a target monster, especially in the second half of the season when Ben wasn't throwing downfield much. But I do expect. I kept lowering Deontay Johnson's targets because I kept thinking like I can't really put him in for like 110 catches, can I? And I think it's possible. I do think it is, especially if he eliminates a lot of the drops. I don't know that it's stronger, but I'm hoping that he's healthier. I think, and again, this is a 15 game projection, so I think Ben can easily, in 16 game projection, I have him over 4,000 yards. So yes, he can absolutely get over 4,000 yards. I would not be surprised at all. So Deontay Johnson, I think, other than hands, I think he's probably the best wide receiver on this team. The hands are a problem. Their hands are absolutely a problem. A better wide receiver, hands-wise, with 150 targets is getting 110 catches. Unfortunately, we got to worry about that a little bit with Johnson. So I do have all these guys scoring a lot of touchdowns, though. You see I have 32 for Ben in 15 games. Plenty of room for all these guys to score, and they do. And if you look at last year, they absolutely all scored. Touchdowns are fluky, but I don't mind having Chase Claypool having the most, and you'll see why. I think they look for him a lot in the red zone, and they scheme a lot of these guys open. I think they can all easily. You can make the case that any of them will lead the team in touchdowns. Yeah, he did lead the league in drops in NBA. You're right. So Big Ben yards and TDs could have been higher. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Especially everyone's got to deal with drops, but yeah, Ben dealt with a lot of drops. You're absolutely right there. So Juju is just somebody that I even if I put the projections really close, the odds to me that he actually does better than this, you'll see in the upside. I have him as a 6. I have the other 2 guys as a 9 because I think Chase Claypool showed me a ton on the film that I saw. I think he does a little bit of everything, and if Ben can throw those deep balls, he's gonna be the best one, especially in a standard league. PPR league, it's gonna be maybe a little bit tough, but Chase Claypool is not just a downfield guy, especially again. Ben wasn't throwing downfield a lot towards the second half of the season. I'm going to show you plenty of plays where Chase Claypool is winning in short yardage too. So he gets open. You talk about he's a bigger body guy, and you talk about somebody like T. Higgins who is not really getting that separation a lot on some of these shorter routes. Claypool is. Claypool is definitely finding himself open a lot more often. And I'll show you that in a second. So as far as where I'm going to rank these guys, I think this is the order. I think in a standard league, Johnson and Claypool, for me, are very, very close. And let me pull up those wide receiver rankings really quickly to see if I can on Fantasy Pros to get a sense of in a standard league where they're going. Again, Deontay Johnson, I think he's just going to get more targets. I think he's going to get more catches. I think he is the better play in PPR leagues. But right now, I'm looking at Deontay Johnson at 27 and Chase Claypool at 29 in standard leagues. I think that's around the area that I'm going to have them. Maybe even both a little bit higher. We'll see. It's really, really tough. They have. And I'm just looking where they have Odell Beckham at 24. Again, the upside's there. I get it. That's close. PPR, I'm definitely going to have Johnson higher than Claypool. You'll see my PPR rankings. I do have Juju with my projections. I do have him having a better season than Claypool, but around that range, I'm probably going to have Claypool a little bit higher than Juju, just because I think he does have higher upside. So, we're coming on to the end of the show. So I'm going to end with Chase Claypool film here. And again, you see downfield, and you see him you see him winning in short yardage too. So just to speak to the Ben stats, let me just go over this real quick. So adjusted yards per attempt is kind of a stat that eliminates. It tries to eliminate things like a short yardage touchdown is going to hurt yards per attempt. Even though it's a completion, you can't say how far he would have run on that. So adjusted yards per attempt is a stat that kind of tries to look at yards per attempt in a more fair way, and not just straight up, yards or attempts divided by yards. So adjusted yards per attempt, the first 9 games, which is when I said Ben was throwing the ball downfield a lot more. 7 of those games, Ben had an average yards or adjusted yards per attempt over 7, and that's not including one game where he had a 6.94. So if you want to use 6.94 as your range there, as your bar, that would be 8 of the 9 games. In his last 7 games, including the playoffs, because he didn't play Week 17, there was only one game where he had over that amount. So that just goes to show you in terms of his yards per attempt, it absolutely dropped down big towards the end of the season. So, again, was he hurt? Is he cooked? We're going to find out. There's no way we could possibly know. What we want to see also, we want to hear in training camp, is everybody saying he's cooked? Because every year, off season, it was like, look at this dart that Ben Roethlisberger is throwing downfield for 25 yards, and it was like a pop-up. So, you don't want to listen to that PR nonsense. What you want to hear is, if people are like, Ben looks like crap. And if that happens, then I'm going to start putting everybody down. I'm going to be putting Najee Harris a little bit up. Because I think it might be a little bit, it might be a sign that they're going to be running the ball more. So, now we're looking at Claypool here. 7 of those, and this speaks to, maybe accuracy as well. 7 of those 9 games, Claypool caught at least half of his targets, and in the 3, and he only went at least 50% of his targets caught in 3 of those final 8 games that he played. So, again, it wasn't even just, it was accuracy as well as not being able to throw downfield. So the offense was just a mess. Claypool, I think he took a hit because of that. So his best yards per reception in the second half was in Week 17 with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. So that just goes to show you that it was not very good with Ben in the second half. But I'm going to show you a good chunk of throughout this season of what you saw from Claypool. So this one's really good. This is, again, early season Ben. Different count is using this Game Pass. That's not true. That's not the case. That is not true at all. So I gotta load these up again. But this was Chase Claypool's first. Well, we have the, of course, the game podcast comes on first. So. And that's not what we want to watch. So we're gonna watch the all 22 film. So Claypool up the top of the screen. His first career catch. And this is a really good sideline throw, toe tapper to stay in traffic, awesome catch for his first catch ever. How good is that, man? That's really, really good stuff. And good throw from Ben again. Thread the needle, threw it in between 2 defenders, perfect throw. Week 2, you see the speed, and you see another great throw from Ben. He is at the top of the screen. This is just straight up speed. He wins, and what T. Higgins wasn't doing was finishing. Claypool finishes. So, love that. So, you talked about drops, NBA, and it wasn't just Deontay Johnson. There were too many drops from Claypool too. And this is another pretty good downfield throw from Ben. Right here, he's out, hits him. Yeah, the defender gets in there, but he hits him around the waist. You know, that's a good throw by Ben. Again, early in the season, that this is week 3 now, that he drops. So 219, we saw some speed again, or we saw some speed on like the deep balls. What is encouraging when it comes to Claypool is he kept that yards per catch up without always having to catch a deep ball. He's got some good yards after the catchability, good speed. Doesn't quite score here, but just to get 24 yards on the screen there, it shows a lot of athleticism. So, week 5, 11:56. I believe this one's against my Eagles again. He had a good game here, and he had Darius Slay on him a lot. I don't think he has him on him here, but it's a really nice route. And then the run after the catch. Probably poor tackling, sure, but love to see that. Again, you don't need him to catch those super deep throws from Ben to get the long plays. So that's what you like about him. He doesn't have to rely on those deep balls. So you're projecting 4,200 yards from Ben. I think if Ben plays 17 games, I'm absolutely with you. So let's see. I don't even want to show you that. I'm not even going to show you that. This is one where like it was again on the Eagles linebacker, and it's not really indicative of what of what he is as a player. I don't think so. He had a linebacker on him and he beat him deep. Yeah, so this is another week 6. Ben is not quite cooked, and it benefits Chase Claypool. Perfect throw. Doesn't quite get in. The throw takes him out of bounds right before the goal line. So week 9, 9:16, and I know I'm coming up on an hour and a half, and I'm almost done here. I got like 5 more plays for you from Chase Claypool, because I do think he's a really good sort of sleeper wide receiver that is worth taking a deeper look at. So week 9, 9:16. This is an example of what you started to see later in the year and what he's really good at. So he beat Slay a couple times, but not deep. So I think he is here. So these, no, I'm sorry. I he's coming across the field. So you see a lot of those. You see a lot of that where he comes across the field, maybe like 5 yards. Decent amount of him running those outs like that too. So that's basically what you were seeing a lot of at the end of the season. So that's not what we want. That's not going to win you your fantasy week. That 6 for 60. We want the 6 for 100 and a touchdown. Like we don't want that. So, but yeah, he definitely suffered from some poor Ben passing down the stretch. So 13:42 in this game. Actually, yeah, this is right towards the beginning of the game. He's at the bottom of the screen. Beats his guy and throws out of bounds. Never even has a chance at it. So not a good throw at all. And you know that could have been a huge play. Earlier in the season, does Ben make that throw? I think he might. So, but week 11, we're getting later into the season now. This is a really nice throw from Ben. This is against the Jags again. That's my rule. You got to play good against the Jags. Gotta have a good game. But just runs deep. Perfect throw from Ben. Great catch. Against the Jags, but it's a good throw from Ben. Again, I'm not going to show you a ton of the bad hands plays, but I'm going to show you, but take my word for it, that there were a good amount of them. But here, deep cross. Good throw from Ben, a little behind him actually, but you'll see here that this throw is maybe behind him, but really good adjustment from Claypool to stop, catch it in midair, and he gets hit, and he hangs onto the ball. So better hands there, but take my word for it, there were some plays that weren't very good. There were plenty of bad hands plays. So a couple more. This is in the wild card game. So again, deep as you can get in the season. 1:13 to go in this game. He doesn't take as many of these shots as we go on through the season. He's at the bottom of the field here. But this is a 25-yard throw. Money for a touchdown from Ben. So this throw tells me that it's not that he can't do it, or that he wasn't capable of it. That's a really good throw. That's not like a 40, 50-yard throw, but if he's doing that, Claypool can kind of do the rest. So I really like that, and then I think this is the last one I wanted to show you, because this is why I have him at 9 touchdowns or so. There's a lot of... There he was at the top of the screen. I didn't show you all the touchdowns, but trust me, they look for him a lot, and he gets open a lot in the red zone. So like to see that. So that is the Chase Claypool film. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if he is the number one wide receiver on the Steelers this year. In a standard league, I might not draft them that way, but I'm very, very close. Very, very close on the two of them. So I got to rank Ben higher. It's going to be up in the air. He's going to be around that Baker Mayfield territory. There's problem is there are, it's similar to like what I said with, what was it, Tyler Boyd. I might rank him like 18 and think there's a very good chance he finishes top 15. But will he finish top 12? Top 10? Probably not. So that's where I come out with Ben. So just the upside, I just don't see as much there. So, and with the chance that he might be cooked, yeah, I'm probably just not going to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of things in this league that won't surprise me, but that's kind of where I'm at. So that'll do it for me, unless you have any other questions. My plan for next week is to, again, do next Wednesday. I go on vacation the following day. I'm on vacation starting next Thursday, so I will not be doing any shows in 2 weeks. Next week, I will do 2 more shows. I will have my Twitch show and then this YouTube division previews. If I can get through it, my goal before next Wednesday is, and I'm going to make it as quick as I can, maybe not show quite as much film, talk as much about so many guys, but you'll see where I'm at with some of these guys with the projections. My goal is to do NFC West and AFC West. A lot of teams, a lot of people to look at, but like team like the Chiefs are quick. I'm not going to show you anything. I'm going to say draft Travis Kelce, draft Patrick Mahomes, draft Tyreek Hill. Problem is I might want to show you some CEH film, and that's actually, now that I think about it, that might be a problem. So maybe just like 5 or 6 plays and a guy that I think are just indicative of what I saw during the season. So so that's it. I am hoping for 2 division previews, then I go on vacation, and then I come back, and I'm talking rankings per position. I'm talking draft strategy. I am heading to the Outer Banks, actually. So that is where I will be basically from Thursday to Thursday. So that is my plan. So I will not have shows again in 2 weeks. Come back, and then I'll start doing like running back rankings, draft talk, all kinds of stuff like that. So so that is where I will be at with from then. And at that point, I will start filling. I'm going to have a viewer league, so I will start filling in spots for that. NBA, you are a loyal viewer, also an active chatter. So you helped me with my other mock draft for the actual NFL draft. So if you want in, let me know. We'll figure out day and time later in the summer. But I will be doing a draft. I have a lot of other plans for like pick'em leagues and other stuff like that. Maybe a DraftKings or FanDuel league or something like that. So yeah, off the radar. Yeah, I'm hoping to get away. Basically, this will be my preseason rest before the fantasy stuff really gears up, and I'm into it until the new year. So hopefully I get some rest and relaxation. So yeah, and again, if you're not already, follow my Instagram, Mr. Zach T Sports. A lot of my quick reaction stuff, rankings talk, a lot of other stuff is going to be quick, smaller videos, stuff like that is going to be on the Instagram if you're on there. So that's at Mr. Zach T Sports. And I will probably start using the Twitch more for football again soon. So again, same name as here at Mr. Zach T. So appreciate you guys. That's about it for me. That'll wrap it up. Again, ideally NFC West and AFC West on next Wednesday. We'll wrap up the division previews. We'll do a double trouble fantasy focus style. So that's what we'll look at there. So appreciate you guys for stopping by. If you haven't already, click the like button on this video. Click the subscribe button. The support is huge. Appreciate the views and all that. But the subs and the likes also help as well. It's a 5-second thing that really helps me out. So appreciate it, and I will talk to you